Hey, welcome in.
Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict podcast.
We are here coming to you live.
Let me tell you, the dopamine, it's flowing.
I am damn excited. Damn excited.
We are so excited to be joining you guys tonight.
Oh!
Well, how you doing, man? Patrick.
Will Sterling.
Yeah.
Super Bowl champion, two-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Oh, he picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score!
And we'll see you next week. But until then, as always, go Chiefs. Welcome into the Arrowhead Addict podcast. My name is Price Carter. This is the Intangibles. Joining me today, as always, is my good friend Christian Ainsworth. Christian, how are you doing today?
Better after the MUKU win for sure. That Friday was rough for me, man.
Can we just acknowledge, like, don't worry, we'll get all bleak and sad and act like the world is falling down around us. But can we just acknowledge how freaking good it is to have football back? Good football in our lives. A hell of a Sunday night football game between just two quarterbacks playing at the highest level. You brought it up, the border war. As a neutral observer, I enjoyed the hell out of that game. That was just such a great game. Really weird game too, where like KU got utterly dominated, but like they barely lost until like the last couple plays there. And just the madness that is Sunday football with the NFL going on.
Oh yeah, dude, it was super cool as well, just as an MU fan, to see some of the transfer guys like go off. Like Amon Hardy kind of was like a player we got in the transfer portal that was supposed to be incredible. In that first game, everybody was, a little scared. We had our initial starting quarterback go down, and then Bo looks fantastic. Hardy looks fantastic. It's like, I mean, this is the peak of MU football. Early season, we're rocking, we're rolling. I can't wait to get my heart broken late.
Hey, they've got a pretty manageable schedule. I thought, how do you say the quarterback's last name? Prebula?
Yeah.
Yeah. He, you knew he could run, but man, I don't know. Like, you guys might have got the better Penn State quarterback the way Allers looked early here this year, but we will see about that. Enough college football talk. There will be plenty of that to come for us later in the months, but we're going to kind of run down today what we think are the biggest actual things that matter from the loss in Brazil. I feel like this game being on a Friday only made it worse, where you just got to sit and stew on it, and then you watch NFL Sunday. And look, the way that Sunday night football game went down, that reminded me of the 13 seconds game or the Chiefs Rams game and at the Coliseum in 2018. Like, sometimes you just get teams on a fast track like that, and no one's slowing it down, right? Like, the defenses, they're still catching their breath, they're new, they're still getting chemistry together. Like, I have a feeling neither one of those defenses is going to be that bad by the time real football is played around Thanksgiving time. But I was seeing things like, wow, every NFL offense looks better than the Chiefs. I'm not sure what game those people are watching, because I watch the Dolphins have like 33 yards and a half, and then the Bengals followed it up with T. Higgins, with Jamar Chase, with Chase Brown, with Mike Gesicki, all these guys, and they had 7 yards and a half. So I promise not everything in the world is falling apart.
Oh yeah, dude. And it was super easy for Chiefs fans to get pissed off, especially when you watch that Sunday night game and it's like James Cook looks great. Like, he's breaking every tackle, and Derrick Henry looks like the old Derrick Henry. And you're like, dear God, why can't our offense look like this for one game? Like, I'd love if we gave Pacheco the ball more than 5 times in an entire game, but that's, it's just easy to get pissed off about that type of stuff when you watch these super good offenses go back and forth.
I hate boiling it down to this. Let's just before I say this, let's acknowledge one thing. Travis Kelce is no longer Travis Kelce. Are we right about that?
I don't think that's a hot take.
He's a diminished version of himself. He's still probably better than half of the tight ends in the league, but he's not the same player he was. That's okay. Like, he's given enough to this team and helped this team be a dynasty. So we're okay. What the problem is that the Chiefs in the last 3 years have invested free agency money on Hollywood Brown, a first-round pick on Xavier Wothy, a second-round pick on Rashee Rice, and a fourth-round pick on Jalen Royals. and those guys cannot get on the field together. Like the Chiefs are essentially going to go August of 2024, so over a year ago, to probably October 2025 without having Worthy, Brown, and Rice on the field together. I mean, like it's just that it's that simple. Like name your favorite NFL offense and how would they look without their top three passing options? What do the Eagles look like without Devontae Smith, AJ Brown, and Dallas Goedert? And I get that they're not that level of players, but pick any offense. Like, what do the Broncos look like without Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims, and I don't know, do they even have a third wide receiver?
I don't know. Devon Vele. No, he's with the Saints. So
that game was pretty rough, by the way. The Broncos, people forgot that Bo Nix is Bo Nix. Like everyone just forgot that he got a shit kicked in by the Bills in the playoffs, and like everyone's just like, oh, this could be the year. Imagine year two. So we'll get into all of it. We're gonna talk about what really matters here, and we're gonna be power ranking the top 5 real concerns we have, because there are some things here that we're probably overreacting to, that we're knee jerking to.
Oh yeah, no, let's get into it, man.
Well, before we do that, real quick, let's talk about our friends over at DraftKings or over at Underdog Fantasy. This is one of my favorite times of the year. When you've got a standalone game, a Monday night game, a Thursday night game, maybe a Friday night game, and maybe you've got no dog in the fight. Well, Underdog helps you get back in that fight by putting some little morsels on the game to make it more intense, to make it more exciting. Football is back, and Underdog is the best place to make picks, like against the Bears and the Vikings. Playing on Underdog is easy. Just pick whether your favorite players will go higher or lower on stats like touchdowns, receiving yards, interceptions, and more. Get your picks right, and you could win up to 5,000 times your cash. You can play with as little as $1. So here's what I've got cooked up. Come be on this card with me. Let's sweat through it tonight. I'm fading the Bears here a little bit, and I think this is like, if I could, I would probably fade all the like unders or the lowers for all the receptions and stuff. So I've got Caleb Williams under 218 and a half passing yards. I've got Aaron Jones higher than 49 and a half rush yards. TJ Hawkinson higher than 4.5 receptions. JJ McCarthy higher than 16 and a half rush yards. So that's just kind of fading. Like I think there's probably going to be a little bit of a slog. I don't like Caleb Williams against a really aggressive defense here. So that's what I'm going to be on. You can do that and use our promo code and really up the ante on what you can get into this game. Download the app today and sign up with our promo code Arrowhead Addict to score $50 in bonus funds when you play your first $5. That's promo code Arrowhead Addict, all one word. Millions of fans have already won billions making picks on Underdog. Will you be next? Underdog, make picks, win money. Must be 18 years or older, 19 in Alabama, in Nebraska, 19 in Colorado for some games, 21 in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.npcgambling.org. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-369. Okay, so let's just zoom out for a second on the game just to talk a little bit about it. I think the turning point for this game, and we'll give the brief Xavier Wothy update that we got with this too. Obviously, probably the biggest turning point in the game came early when Xavier Wothy goes down. For some reason, the Chiefs cannot stop hurting each other against the Chargers. But when that happened, and the way it happened so early in the game, I think the offense really clammed up the first half and was not able to do anything. And I think part of the reason why is because there's not another player on the team who can really emulate what Xavier Wothy does. And I think, we've kind of talked about that. We thought the plan was for Xavier Wothy to take the Rashee Rice kind of design touches, and they struggled to get going on that. I don't know about you, but after watching everything, it was just very obvious to me that the first half of the game was just kind of getting their bearings about them after losing Xavier Wothy.
Oh yeah, well, and it happening on the third play of the game really didn't help them at all either. I think there's this mantra that the Chiefs have where it's, dance with who you brung you, which refers to like, hey, we're a passing team. We've always been a passing team. Let's stick with what's worked in the past and we're not going to change anything up. Well, you can do that when you have Tyreek Hill and Watkins, excuse me, and prime Travis Kelce. You can throw as much as you want to. But the problem is when you lose Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy and, Travis Kelce's on the downhill of his career, it's like, maybe do what works. And I feel like it took them a little bit to get it, like you said, get their bearings back. But also, I don't think that they made the necessary changes, based on the roster that they had.
Well, here's what I'll say. I think that when you look at it, the bigger part of the blame pie has to go to the defense. And the defense was very clearly struggling with kind of catching up with the play action game that they were going with. Every time you looked, it was almost like if you didn't know a lot about football and you just watched the game, a lot of people would kind of clump up at the line of scrimmage at the pass point. And I don't know if it was the Chiefs trying to do stunts in games, but the Chargers constantly had motion at the line of scrimmage, not like wide receiver motion, but like pulling guards, pulling tight ends, fullbacks, wide receivers, like chipping. And I think it created a lot of traffic. And then the back end, the amount of confusion that was there was just really, really high. So when you're looking at it and, okay, well, the Chiefs are down 10, that's right where they have them. They just clearly didn't have the guys to be able to take advantage of that. And in reality, like we're sitting here and I've heard everything from like the Chiefs got their ass kicked and stuff. And it's like reality, they were a 3rd and 14 away from probably going down and winning that game. If the Chiefs get the ball back, I feel like we're all just sitting here talking about, the Chargers chargered again. Andy Reid did have a Zoom press conference today where he mentioned that Xavier Worthy is day to day. Ian Rappaport has reported that it is a dislocated shoulder for him, which from most of what you can tell can be a wide variety of things. It sounds like he's labeled as day to day. They're hoping that he can play through it with a brace. The likelihood of re-injury is high. Sounds like it probably won't be totally right until he gets surgery, which will probably be an off-season thing unless they opt to go for surgery now. So what that means, we don't know, right? It could be 2 or 3 weeks. It could be 5 or 6. Could it be that they get Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy back at the same time? Not really sure, but either way, I would put the likelihood of him playing in Kansas City against the Eagles very, very low.
Oh, 100%. But I think it's important to remember too, this isn't the Eric Berry day-to-day injury designation where he, never ends up really coming back. Xavier Worthy has this soft tissue injury with his shoulder dislocation. I wouldn't say that they're fairly common in the sport, but dislocations happen all the time as long as it doesn't require surgery, which at this point they say it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. I would put him on track with that timeline based on everything I've seen to come back before Rashee Rice, maybe, but definitely not against the Eagles for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a good chance you think about football and running, like your shoulder, it's involved a lot, right?
Yes.
So there's
As
also
a
the
wide
whole
receiver. Yes.
What is he going to look like when he comes back? Baker Mayfield a couple years ago played through a dislocated shoulder in his non-throwing shoulder, but I mean, if you're a quarterback, your shoulders are involved either way. So you got to think about that a little bit too. In that, like, okay, he was able to play through it. What is Worthy going to be able to play through? Just brutal. Like literally the one time it couldn't happen, and that's what happened. So pretty unfortunate there. And at the end of the day, they wasted what was an absolute golden Patrick Mahomes performance. I was just really so for FTN. I chart the Chiefs. I chart every single snap that they take. And outside of about 3 plays, I thought Patrick Mahomes was about as good as you could have asked him to be. I think there was a couple of passes he missed, but there was also like he kind of had a couple of drops too that didn't help him along the way. But for them to waste that performance really stinks because he really put them on his back in that game, especially in the second half, where I just felt like for a quarterback, especially with the ability he has to scramble like a Josh Allen, like a Lamar Jackson, the way that they're able to just take over a game like that, it's really special. And it was good to see that. I really like that.
Oh yeah, well, and I think it's interesting that you say that because I feel like this kind of ties into that Brett Beach Discord that we've been seeing all over Twitter the past couple of days of like, how can you possibly surround Patrick Mahomes with this little amount of talent? And it's like, like we were saying earlier, you're missing your 2 best wide receivers and, your tight end isn't as great as he was last year or the year before that. And so it's like, dude, I don't know if Brett Veach deserves all of the blame here. This is just going to come. This is the cost of missing two of your best players on offense. And, you can point to Josh Allen, you can point to Lamar Jackson about being these guys who can take over games in different ways. And to be fair, I mean, their rushing style is a little bit different from Mahomes. They can look more dominant at times. But, I mean, as far as Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, I think their performances in their games this week were somewhat comparable, even if Josh Allen looked unstoppable there at the end of the game. He just had the guys to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, let's be clear: Keon Coleman and Josh Palmer aren't exactly world beaters, but James Cook would probably be the best player on the Chiefs' offense right now.
Yes. Yeah.
Same for Derrick Henry. Same for Zay Flowers. And yeah, the not surrounding Patrick Mahomes with enough talent and that the roster is falling apart and those type of things, that's one of those that's not going to be on my list of things that matter, because let's let players develop. People seem to forget that players grow and develop. Sometimes the progression is non-linear. Sometimes it is linear, that they just get better and better. What you thought of Rashee Rice week 1 of 2023 versus what he ended up being through the playoffs that year was a totally different player. Chiefs fans were really yearning for the Chiefs to make the trade for Colin Saunders that can't remember who ended up trading for him. I know he was on the Saints, but
The
someone
Jags.
traded for
the Jags traded for him.
A lot of people wanted the Chiefs to make that move. Colin Saunders was about to be everyone had him as that cut in camp his final year here in Kansas City, because he just never really put it all together. And then he had a good year and kind of took that next step and was actually pretty good that year that they beat the Eagles in the Super Bowl. So let's let some players develop. They have plenty of now. Look, when we get to answering the questions, if we try to answer the questions with Aston Gelati, Omar Norman Lott, putting Bossa in a little bit more, let's see what Noel Williams can do. Let's see if Jaden Hicks takes some more steps. If we get there and those players aren't the answer, then we can really have the conversation of that. But it's almost like we're coming to a conclusion about these guys in week 1. The pass rush has an opportunity to look different when it has Omar Norman Lott and they play Ashton Gelati more. The secondary has a chance to get younger and more athletic with a Noel Williams and stuff. And you know what? If you remember back in 2018, the team was just insistent on playing old veterans in the secondary, and then they finally make the change to Charvarius Ward against Seattle, and he has a kind of a rough game, but you see his athleticism, you see that he's there, he's just not getting his head turned around, and now he's an all-pro, right? So they've got to be willing to try those things out, but let's not write off the fact, how much different does this game look when Josh Simmons is the fully realized version of himself and more experienced, with Kingsley Suamataia, with Xavier Wothy, Rashee Rice, Hollywood Brown, and no touches for Brashard Smith. And I mean, that's also not even mentioning who was pretty clutch in this game. Tyquan Thornton for them, right? That's a development guy. That's a guy that they stuck on their practice squad and is now better than he was when he came in.
Yeah, well, and you have guys like you talked about Rashee Rice and Xavier Wothy. It's guys, I mean, it's an Andy Reid offense, so rookies aren't going to get a whole lot of playing time early. That's just the way it has been for skill position guys outside of running back and apparently left tackle now that we have Josh Simmons. But it's these guys do need time to develop, and sometimes more than 1 year. That's a big thing for wide receivers as they go into this sophomore year and they hit that slump, or quarterbacks. We watched Bo Nix this past year or this past game look incredibly mortal, even though he played fairly well. It's going to take some time for those guys. Kingsley Suamataia is basically playing an entirely new position. This is a rookie year for him, essentially. Same thing with Josh Simmons. I do think that we need to give him a little bit more, I don't know what you'd call that, grace when it comes to development. But I also think some of these guys, like Rashee Rice or even Xavier Wothy when he gets back, we maybe need to see them be more than what they should be, if that makes any sense. I think we need to see some of these guys take a significant step forward. It's not like we have a lot of rookies starting defensively. And that's where I think the major slump lied, or the main cause of this loss was the defense. And I think that when you have older guys that are making mistakes like Chris Jones or Drew Tranquill or Jaden Hicks even, we need those guys to step up and be the leaders and be the main players on the defense, even though, they've had so much time in the league, they should be there.
All right. So before we get to our power rankings, let's just have the conversation for a second because Twitter's buzzing with it. We've got it here in the comment section as well. And it's something that I think everyone would want to hear. Thoughts on the very easy dots to connect between Tyreek Hill and the Chiefs. Do you think they should? Do you think that they will? Your thoughts?
Should they find a playmaker like Tyreek Hill to add to the roster? Yes. Is it going to be Tyreek Hill this year? Almost certainly not. The math doesn't add up as far as the contract goes. Dolphins aren't incentivized to move him this year. This upcoming offseason, yes, absolutely. But I think that the compensation required, the amount of money that would hit the cap, all the things you would have to do to realize that. I think a lot of people don't realize we are very, very close to the top of the cap right now. I think I saw 2.4 million in cap space. That's not a lot. That's not enough to put Tyreek Hill on the roster. I think the Dolphins would also have to take $57 million in dead cap. Now, if the Dolphins are willing to do that and they're willing to take, a portion of his contract, I'm not exactly sure how that would have to work out. But yes, I could see that as a possibility. It just, to me, is too unrealistic. And there are better, younger targets who I think would fit in the Chiefs offense a little bit better than Tyreek Hill at this point, that Beach would be more inclined to trade for.
Well, look, it's really fun to think about, right? Like, let's be real.
Tyreek Hill back on the Chiefs? Yes.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. And you think about what they could actually be with him, Worthy, Rice. I mean, it gets really, really exciting. With the way things are going in Miami, I will not be surprised at all if Tyreek Hill is traded. I think, there's always been a little redundancy. I think that they'll probably try to build around Waddle, who's also under contract and brings similar things, not exactly the same skill set. It's been exactly a calendar year since Tyreek Hill has had a reception over 30 yards. That stat was running around Twitter this morning. It's not a no-brainer, right? And the cap, like you said, the Chiefs have about 2.4 million. His cap hit is $10 million this year. That would be prorated out per the games, but by the time of trade deadline, you'd be trading for a majority of that number. So they'd have to really finagle some magic for that to happen. I certainly feel better about the Chiefs getting more out of Tyreek Hill than what's happening in Miami right now, because that situation is just awful. And yeah, you make that move, it starts getting really exciting to think about the future. But I think if you're making that move, I would probably only make it for this year, or I don't know. I just don't want the deteriorating version of Tyreek Hill taking away snaps from younger players, because at the end of the day, Tyreek Hill is going to want to get paid like a top receiver still. And then you're just back where you started with him, where it's he's a guy who's wanting more money than you want to pay him. And now he's more of an injury risk. And there is still all of the baggage with Tyreek Hill that still comes, because, he's kind of shooting his way out of Miami. And he said a lot of things about Kansas City being gone here. And I guarantee you, he will change his tune real quickly if he were to come back to Kansas City. But I'm just not necessarily sure that this is as much of a no-brainer as we're making it out to be.
Oh, yeah. You said something really important, too, there. You look at the Chiefs wide receiver core, and I know we have Rashee Rice is on ice right now and Xavier Wothy as well. But it's what position is he coming in and playing for you? Is he taking over that Rashee Rice role while he's gone? What happens when Rashee Rice comes back? Or Xavier Wothy, is he going to take the Xavier Wothy role for a few weeks and then he's out there playing X? I don't think anybody really wants that to happen. There's this cohesion in the wide receiver room right now, even though we haven't seen it on the field yet. I don't know if they want to jack with that chemistry.
It's absolutely one of those things that whenever we're talking about it here and we're analyzing it, I'm like, oh yeah, I don't know. And then the push notification hits my phone and
and we're ripping the house up. Yeah,
we're back. We are so back. We've never, I honestly, the thing I'd be most interested in is what number would he wear? Because Pacheco has 10 now, and I feel like he's probably not giving it up at this point.
Yeah.
That's an important conversation that we should have. We can discuss that if that happens. But let's get to the bread and butter here. We power ranked the 5 things from the loss from Brazil that we think matters the most. So 5 is the least, 1 is the most. I'll go first, and if we have some overlap here, we can kind of discuss it. My number 5 was Kingsley Suamataia. Like I said, I've watched every snap on all 22. Kingsley Suamataia, by the way, please just stop with the PFF grades. It's so bad, man. You realize that they have Sam Darnold graded the same thing as Josh Allen? Sam
Yeah.
Darnold has the same PFF grade as Josh Allen's performance last night. Jesus Christ. They charted Kingsley Suamataia as the Chiefs' best offensive lineman last night or on Friday. And they had Josh Simmons giving up 5 pressures. I'm here to tell you a pressure is not all pressures are not universal. It's not a light switch. It's not a cookie cutter, right? Josh Simmons' pressures and Kingsley Suamataia's pressures could not look any different. Kingsley Suamataia gave up 3 pressures, but they were quick losses. And the thing is when you're playing on the interior and you lose quickly, the path to the ball to the quarterback is much smaller. He's number 5 for me because I thought he overall played all right. The quick losses are still concerning. And also, when I'm factoring in what really matters here for this team trying to go back to a Super Bowl, that is one of the things. Because you're dealing with Mahomes' health, you're dealing with the run game too, which, I was hoping to see a little bit more from them in the run game. Chiefs faced light boxes all day in that game and could not do anything with it. That was very, very frustrating that they couldn't get more movement up front. So for me, like Kingsley's number 5, Josh Simmons is not on my list. I will say I thought he looked really good.
I agree. Yeah.
There's some moments there where he does get, got a couple of times. He faced mostly Bud Dupree. That was who I saw him lining up the most across from, who's a guy that the Chargers just re-signed. He faced some Khalil Mack too as well. But it's just really evident that like his athleticism and ability to mirror, it gives him a ton of grace when it comes. And this was a great first game for him. It's obviously going to be more tough next week with Nolan Smith and some of the other guys that the Eagles can throw at you from a pass rush spot. But that's my number 5.
Okay, important to remember too with Simmons, is that he was injured for a majority of last season. So this is the first real football game he's played in a while. So I think it's important to remember that he's gonna, need some time to acclimate to the NFL, not only to the jump, but that comes from coming from college, but also being injured, recovering from the injury. There's just a lot of factors there. And with how well he played, I agree. I think he did really, really well. My number 5 is the defensive back group. And I know this is going to be a lot higher on a lot of other people's lists here. But when you have Christian Fulton only playing 8 snaps for the entire game, and you have Trent McDuffie only playing 11 snaps from the slot, I think that the ceiling there is still just way too high to be like, oh my God, this guy is falling. Jaden Hicks is a bust. Trent McDuffie lost his edge. Justin Watson got cooked all game. It's like, yeah, a lot of that stuff did happen. I think that Jamari Connor didn't play particularly well either. But with the ramping up of Christian Fulton and with Trent McDuffie eventually making that move back to the slot, I think that there's just a lot still to like here, even though they didn't have a fantastic game.
Yeah, that actually kind of goes in with my next one here. And the Christian Fulton thing was interesting, right? Like it was almost like I almost speculated if there was some sort of like internal discipline or something for him because he wasn't out there like in the first half at all.
Yeah.
And then comes out at halftime and he's just like out there almost every snap. And yeah, like Shamari Connor led the team in slot coverage snaps. I'm here to tell you in the charting that I do for FTN, we have a primary defender, which is basically who is responsible for the player running a route, tight end, running back, wide receiver. The amount of times that column has 27 and 32 in it is staggering. Shamari Connor, Nick Bolton. I mean, they were just find those guys and target them over the middle of the field repeatedly over and over again. That is frustrating. And that leads me to my number 4 point. Are the Chiefs going to change the things that need to be changed? All right. I am usually one of the more patient people when it comes to the Chiefs nowadays. I feel like as far as let's wait and see. It wasn't until about this year that I was willing to say FAU is not going to work out as a pick. Are they going to get Shamari Connor out of the slot? Is this Trent McDuffie wanting to play outside for a contract to be able to level up the Sauce Gardner contract? Or is this just Spags loving the way Shamari Connors plays? Get Juwan Taylor off the field if he can't do it right. You're paying someone $15 million to be on the bench behind Juwan Taylor. If he's going to keep doing this shit, get him off the field. And all the things that you feel about him as your backup, Jalen Moore, you can feel the same way about Juwan Taylor being your backup tackle. Because Jalen Moore's going to be here next year. Juwan Taylor's not. So cut the shit out. Stop letting it happen. He's actively hurting your team. And they just continually run him out there. It's just like a given. Oh, okay. Well, I guess, this is the time that we have to walk five yards back because of a penalty every time. 4 penalties in this game. Absolutely moronic. And then, the Chris Jones on the edge thing. Okay, I'm tired of seeing Chris Jones get to play Jaws, where he picks his favorite matchup on the defensive line. This team has tried to make him a full-time edge rusher. That experiment failed. Chris Jones is the best when he's along the interior of the defensive line. I know that a majority of his sacks last year came from the edge, but that speed and that burst is going to be the first thing that goes for him. He still generated close to leading the team in pressure. He was effective, but him losing contain on that play against Justin Herbert's literally what cost them the game in that instance. They've got to start getting him on the inside more. It's time to have him be more of a traditional defensive tackle. And look, I'm obviously Spagnuolo knows more than me. Joe Cullen knows more than me. Yada, yada, yada. I get that. But they cannot continue to do these things that I'm saying. Juwan Taylor, Shamari Connor, they got to cut the crap. All right. They have to. I don't think that this team, with the injuries and stuff that they have right now and the lack of talent that they have at the wide receiver position, can be affording these type of errors.
See, I couldn't disagree with you more about the Chris Jones thing. Honestly, like I whenever I see the production of our other defensive linemen, I go, we need somebody that can be dominant and can take advantage of these matchups. Because George Karlaftis and Mike Dana are not. Let's be clear.
Or is it that the scheme is relying around Chris Jones? That the scheme is get Chris Jones the best matchup possible, and then other guys are like holding contain or soaking up double teams or those type of things, or like stunting and stuff. Like, I would just like to see what it looks like whenever Chris Jones is lined up, like almost like, for instance, Jalen Carter last season lined up in the same 2 gaps like almost the entire season. Because we were talking about that when it was coming down to him facing Mike Caliendo, and that he lined up head up over like Trey Smith's side. I would just like to see that a little bit more, because I feel like they're not necessarily maximizing everyone's potential to maximize Chris Jones' potential.
Well, and that's perfectly segues into my next, which is my number 4. The defensive line was desperate for a hero on Friday, whenever we were out there. Somebody needed to get pressure. Charles Omenihu, non-existent. Mike Dana, non-existent. The reason this is so low here on my list is because I think it will get worked out with Omar Norman-Lott and then Ashton Gillotte getting more playing time. But this goes into exactly what you're saying here with the Chris Jones thing. If Ashton Gillotte has 1 pressure on 4 true pass rushing snaps, he deserves to see more playing time. I know he's not the most effective on the outside. I know that he's still working on his technique. He looks, kind of like a whirling dervish out there at the defensive end spot. But it's like, at some point, Charles Omenihu, Mike Dana, I know they went up against one of the best pass protectors in the league in Joe Alt, but you'd still like to see them get more than 0 pressures on the day. Karlaftis did a great job with 4. But again, it's one of those things where we need to get some matchups where Chris Jones is being effective, and he's not the only one being effective. I agree. Chris Jones going around and picking out his matchups is not the most advantageous most of the time for the entire scheme. But I think that when you allow him to do that, and then you have Omar Norman-Lott coming from the middle, and he can take advantage of another mismatch along the interior offensive line, you don't necessarily need to keep contain 100% of the time. Those pressures are going to force the quarterback up, make him move. Then you've got George Karlaftis and Ashton Gillotte coming in there to make these moves. But that is not what we saw against the Chargers. We saw 1 person, 1.5 if you want to count Karlaftis, being effective from a pass rushing standpoint, and 3 guys who were essentially non-factors. And that cannot happen for a Steve Spagnuolo defense who relies on the defensive line as much as he does.
Yeah, and, the highest graded pass rushers on the team are all blitzers, right? Like Drew Tranquill had 2 sacks.
Shamari Connor.
And Karlaftis gets a nice little hustle sack that, was, right at the line of scrimmage or whatever. And yeah, like this comment here that Alan makes, here's the thing. You can say, he says, Omar Norman-Lott hasn't proved anything at the NFL level yet. That's the point, right? Mm-hmm. Guess who has proved that they aren't a pass rushing monster? Mike Dana. At this point, Charles Omenihu, like the flashes that we saw from him in 2023 pre-ACL, I'm not sure that those are coming back. I don't get me wrong, I think he's a useful player, but I don't think this is a guy that we've got to worry about leaving town for some mega deal. He went out to the market this year, and the market told him he's not worth what he was hoping. Omar Norman Law hasn't
off the field stuff too.
Yeah, and Omar Norman Law, Ashton Gelati, those guys haven't proven anything yet. That's exactly the point. Let them prove that they can or cannot do it. The thing is about the Chiefs defense is you sit there and watch it, it looked painfully unathletic and slow outside of 2 or 3 guys. And they've got youth on the roster. I still am very optimistic about this draft, but we don't have to have Nick Bolton in the dime every single time or Drew Tranquil in the dime every single time. Get Bassa out there who at least has a skill set that's reluctant. And yeah, you know what? He might make a mistake and blow a coverage, but guess what? They were getting whatever they wanted to with freaking Quentin Johnston and 34-year-old Keenan Allen. So at least give it a try, you know? And same goes for Noel Williams. Same goes for Ashton Gelati, Omar Norman Law, all those guys, right? And I do think, you know, the coverage is something that was highly concerning this game. They played a surprising amount of zone, and there was lots of miscommunications. I'm not sure. I think we were all caught off guard that Shamari Connor ended up being the guy to run more safety than Jaden Hicks. At this point, like Brian Cook is, you know, very replacement level safety. And I think we all know how we feel about Shamari Connor. So maybe the answer is more Jaden Hicks. Maybe the answer is getting the veteran Mike Edwards back out there who at least knows the scheme and can kind of help them get a line better. They very clearly missed Justin Reed. And, you know, I do think that the Chargers had a little bit of a curveball there where they came out throwing the ball like crazy. My God, I thought Rich Eisen was going to have a stroke every time the Chargers passed. Like, I kid you not, every time the Chargers passed, he's like, and the Chargers passing the ball. Like, every time it just caught him off guard. I was sitting there watching the game with my family, and I was like, oh my God, are they passing again?
Can you believe Justin or Jim Harbaugh offense passing the ball? Insane.
Yeah. And I get it. Like, they are a run heavy team, but it's just kind of funny. He's having just catatonic every time they drop back to throw the ball. All right. My number 3, and I think this we're trying to get into the zone where it's like, okay, this really can impact their season. And it's the lack of juice of the run game. We already know the whole thing with the running backs. We know that they aren't very talented in that position. They're not very explosive in that position. Chiefs' run game is just so bland and boring. Inside zone, there's just very little creativity to it, it feels like. They did not stick with it for very long. Both Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco each had 5 carries in this game. Patrick Mahomes was the team's leading rusher. They have got to commit to the run. Part of, like, one of the things that we really forget, 2022, Mahomes' second MVP year, they passed the ball really well in that game, but they also were a really good run offense that year. You had Orlando Brown, Joe Tooney, Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith. Those were some road graders in the run game. And Andrew Wiley was just okay. But that is not the case anymore. And if they aren't going to be able to get what's given to them in light boxes, which they faced a ton of in this game, because of the lack of running back talent or because of the blocking scheme, that's a problem. I would love for them to see more downhill, more traditional gap, duo, counter, just any sort of traditional run concept that gets them going north and south downhill and create some alleys and some gaps and get some bodies moving. Because right now, it just feels like this offense is going to be extremely centered on Pat, what can you do for us? Because there are no easy buttons for him. He doesn't have the bubble screen to Rashee Rice. He doesn't have the pop pass to Xavier Wothy. He doesn't have handing, like, it's okay on 1st and 10 for you to get 8 yards with your running back. Like, you know, we sit there and watch Derrick Henry and James Cook in a shootout. It's like, my God, the last time Patrick Mahomes had a guy like this on the field with him was 2018 Kareem Hunt for 9 games. So the run game is concerning to me.
Yeah, and it's going to be a major concern. It's always been a major concern with Andy Reid.
And again, just kind of going back to the well, like, there are some avenues for it to get better. Is that Brashard Smith? I'm less optimistic about that just because this is a guy who was playing wide receiver 2 years ago, and I think he's just going to be a designer guy, but who knows? Maybe getting him a couple more touches can help with that. So again, there's an answer on the roster. We just haven't seen it yet.
Well, and that's perfect for my next point here. With the skill position guys, which is mine. What are we going to do with the skill position players? Xavier Wothy has the injury 3 plays in. That's fine. Rashee Rice is out. That is another deep blow. And then you have Travis Kelce's downfall, which we all expected, but was never more apparent than last night when we needed a savior and he had 2 catches. So, is there somebody on the roster that can step up? Yes. Yeah, they're both injured or not playing. So we're relying on guys who we've seen in part play the role of, the effective receiving option in the Kansas City Chiefs offense. Is that going to be something that we can rely on down the stretch? I think Hollywood Brown has shown a little bit more than we thought that he could have this past game. I was not expecting 100 yards, although I wasn't expecting Xavier Wothy to get injured either. But, does this offense still have the juice? Are these guys going to come back and be everything that they were? There's a lot of questions here that we, don't have answered with these receiving options. If Andy Reid is going to refuse to run the football when your main running back is averaging 5 yards a carry, that's a big hump to get over and a lot to ask of guys who are in their second or third NFL season.
You stuttered, but I think you said it right. A lot of ass.
A lot of ass.
Yes, that's kind of what a lot of what the Chiefs skill players have went. We've overlapped here. So number 2, I have the Chiefs pass rush, and that's just concerning because I don't think that the answer is Ashton Gelati just because he's a rookie. He's the guy who was taken early in the 3rd round. Like the chances of him being a true difference maker as a pass rush probably aren't there, and the Chiefs continue to not have someone who can win quickly, which is frustrating. I go back to my number 1, which is what you're talking about, the skill player talent. And it's not just the injury to Xavier Wothy. It's also fear of it getting worse, right? So Travis Kelce, we've kind of already established at this point, he's a role player, not a guy you're filtering your entire offense through. They clearly still don't have Rashee Rice. They clearly won't have Xavier Wothy here for a little bit. Who is this offense relying on right now? Hollywood Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster. Both of those guys are major injury risk. And you've got Jalen Royals, who's dealing with a knee tendonitis. I don't know what that looks like. If that means like he could be back this week or if he's going to be on the sideline for long term. I mean, we are so dangerously close to McCole Hardman being signed off the Packers practice squad here. It feels almost inevitable at this point for the Chiefs. But man, between what you get from Kelce, between, what you see, and I mean, Tyquan Thornton had some nice plays, but he's clearly not going to be like a savior of this team, right? Like he's not, it feels like the possibilities of us being like, wow, Tyquan Thornton just, carried this team. It's highly concerning because we just talked about, they don't have the ability to run the ball either. Like this isn't a team that's going to be able to grind out wins with the defense the way that is. It's just, the pendulum is starting to swing where like, they were this dominant offensive team, and then they became a defensive team, and now it's starting to swing closer back to the middle where, like, hey, sometimes you might have to go out and win 33-30. And that's really tough to do when your primary wide receivers are Tyquan Thornton, Hollywood Brown, and rookie Jalen Royals.
Yeah, it is really tough. And I'll go through my last 2 here really quick since we're a little short on time. But I put Juwan Taylor and Jalen Moore a little bit higher on my list. They're at my number 2 spot. This is, again, like an unknown in Jalen Moore, who, at this point, dear God, can't be any worse than Taylor. But, I mean, we still haven't seen him play in this offense. There's probably a reason that he didn't start over Juwan Taylor when, this has been Juwan Taylor's MO forever, even when he was with the Jags, making stupid, boneheaded mistakes. And I can tell you what, from everything that we saw in the broadcast, we are not the only ones pissed off about Juwan Taylor making stupid mistakes. Andy Reid was hot. Travis Kelce was in his face, telling him to get his shit together. It's, it feels like one of these moves that is inevitable for the team at some point during this season. It's just win. And if not this season, during the offseason, like you said, it's almost certain that Juwan Taylor will not be back with the team if Jalen Moore can do anything and be at least somewhat effective on the outside at the tackle spot. So that's my number 2. And then my number 1 is Andy Reid's play calling when it comes to the run game. I know Andy Reid is one of the greatest callers of all time, one of the best Chiefs head coaches of all time, one of the greatest head coaches of any team of all time. It's like, but we see this time and time again where Andy Reid relies on the pass, the short passes to do essentially what you can do in the run game, and then refuses to give his, running backs a chance to really get going. And running back is a feel position. It's you get going, you see guys like Derrick Henry, who at the start of the game will not have very big runs. They'll get a feel for how the defense is playing, and then we'll break off a 20 or 30-yard rush in the third quarter, and then a 30 or a 40-yard rush in the fourth quarter. And you get guys Isaiah Pacheco, who doesn't have the greatest vision, and guys who like Kareem Hunt, who doesn't have the greatest breakaway speed, and you're putting them in positions to fail. Even with all that being said, Isaiah Pacheco averaged 5 yards a carry. I know that was, partially because he had a 10-yard run that carried about half of his total for the night. But it's, again, one of those things where we shit on Isaiah Pacheco all the time for not being the best running back the Chiefs have ever had, and taking the torch from Kareem Hunt as an all-time great Kansas City Chiefs running back. It's hard to do when you're getting 5 touches a game. And I love Kareem Hunt as much as the next guy. He's a short yardage guy. He's fantastic. But Patrick Mahomes has 6 carries. Isaiah Pacheco has 5. That should tell you everything you need to know about how Andy Reid viewed the run game when Xavier Wothy and Rashee Rice are on the sideline. And that to me is unacceptable. Again, they definitely, I'm sure Andy Reid has forgotten more football than I will ever know. But listen, when I'm playing Madden, I'm averaging 5 yards a carry. I run the damn ball. That's every coach I've ever met has that same mantra.
Well, and something that frustrated me too, watching the All-22 is like, I think Travis Kelce, obviously, like, I think he's at this point underrated as a run blocker, but he's still not fantastic. I think Noah Gray is adequate, but those two guys are blocking a lot nowadays in the run game. Get someone who's a really good run blocker as a tight end, like that would help too. It would be great if they had some ass kicker in the run game as a tight end, like a Darnell Washington or something like that, because they could use that extra help. And, I want to, like, we're so negative right now. I'll just say, I thought one of the things that they did a pretty good job of providing help to the left side of the offensive line.
Yes,
I saw a lot of
100%.
chips, a lot of protection on that side. Good for them. That's the smart thing to do. I think that certainly needed to happen. But just to kind of like zoom out on this is one game of 17. It sucks that this was a division game, and yeah, it sucks that everyone else in the AFC won or AFC West won. But overall, we have been in this spot before as Chiefs fans, and the Chiefs have been in this spot. Remember 2021? They went to overtime in the AFC Championship game, and I think they fell to, can't remember what they fell to. I think it was like 2-4 at one point. And it was tough, and they ended up finding it, and that defense was part of the problem. And they ended up kind of carrying that team for a stretch of time too. That was the year that they traded for Melvin Ingram, and he kind of helped the pass rush. This is probably going to look a little bit more like that than it did last year. And, a lot of people are going to collect their priors about this. They're going to say, oh, well, the Chiefs won all those close games last year, and now the rent's due, and the regression is coming. There's a very, very good likelihood that the Chiefs are a better team this year by the time they hit the playoffs than they were last year with a worse record. And yeah, they may have to go into Baltimore or into Buffalo to play in an AFC Championship game or a divisional round game. But ultimately, what the Chiefs have to do is get the best version of their team ready for January. That's what this team has done and will do. And that's going to include things like Steve Spagnuolo figuring out the defense and making tweaks. It's going to take figuring out who are the guys that you want playing on the offensive line, whether that be Jawan Taylor, Jalen Moore, Kingsley Suamataia. But there is a runway here. The most important thing right now is that they answer those questions and, try to stop the bleeding as much as possible. It would not surprise me at all if the Chiefs come out and win this game against the Eagles this week. You've got the underdog scenario. You've got we could be sitting here next week talking about how it feels better and how it feels all fixed. So it's not hurting, right? Like it's not over. So let's just take a breath and just realize that there is development here that is happening.
Oh yeah, and nobody is writing off the Chiefs based off of a week 1 loss to the Chargers. Like our season does not end because we lost to the Chargers in week 1. It is not going to be nobody's going to write off the Chiefs if we go 0-2 and lose to the Eagles as well with 2 of our best wide receivers down. Absolutely, this is a team that needs a runway. The only thing I would say is that let's give a little grace to these defensive backs and the rotations, the defense as it gets put together. for the whole year. I know it's hard to do, especially when they turn out a performance like that. But again, that was the strongest part of the team last year. That doesn't mean that it's, going to stay that way forever, but they have deserved at least a little bit of grace when it comes to that type of thing.
Absolutely. Well, we'll be here all week talking you guys off the ledge. Believe it or not, the Chiefs dynasty might not be over. Check out our membership for Arrowhead Addict. We've got a happy hour coming up on Thursday with the members. We're playing the Fantasy Football League. I might just have to retire from fantasy football. It appears that I am just no longer good at that game. But we're going to be covering it. We've got a show every single day of the week. Check it out. I'll be on the halftime and post-game show as well on game day. So this is your one-stop spot for all things Chiefs as we go through the season. Sometimes we are the best resources that we have for each other because the internet and everything can be so toxic. So Twitter might not be the best place right now if you're a Chiefs fan, but here we can have logical, rational conversations. Thank you so much to Christian for joining me as always. And thank you to Sean for doing a great job producing the show. And thank you all for listening. If you could like and subscribe to this video, we'd really appreciate it. That's going to do it for us today here at Arrowhead Addict. As always, go Chiefs.